Thank you, Yvette. Our next speaker is also going to be our keynote speaker on the program tomorrow evening. She comes to us from Fresno, where she is a practicing artist, a poet, and a social activist. Welcome, Dixie Salazar. She has a few poems for us.
Can you hear me okay? I worked quite a few different places in the prisons. I started out at Juvenile Hall in Fresno teaching art classes there, and went to CCWF, Central California Women's Facility, and Valley State Prison, both in Chowchilla, and taught art and writing there. And then I also taught at the Corcoran State Prison, taught writing there at the men's prison. And then I also did a parenting class. I taught it in the Fresno County Jail. So I did a number of years behind bars. But I'm going to start with the poem. If I can find it. About the experiences in the teaching the parenting class in the jail. The women were allowed one contact visit. They only were allowed a contact visit if they were in this parenting class, so it was an incentive for them to sign up for the class. And I know a lot of them just signed up to get that visit, but that's okay. You know, that was a very important part of the whole thing to them. Contact visit. The epigraph is, "To place one's finger on a human body is to touch heaven." Novalis. They come into the room crying. Mercedes and 3 of her 7 children, the front of her green jumpsuit wet, her face swamped with tears. For this hour of contact, they can't let go, full of the feel and smell of each other. Gummy bears, child sweat, milk-sweet hair, and night wind. For now, it all drops away. How she sold their Nintendo for a dime bag, how she was fed habaneros at 5 for a joke, the beer her padre gave to wash it away, how he knocked her, spilling milk, put her down on the floor to lick it up. Then chipping at 14, falling in love with heroin, the horse that rides her now. This is a different inmate. For now it all drops away. Kotek's Christmas tree, the CO's revoked, beeping gates and doors that slam like car crashes, skinny windows in tears, where even the sky is locked out. Lakeisha watches him watch her, a stranger whose brown eyes are soft as melting chocolate. The other 2 are lost in the system, but now he pulls her nose, an unfamiliar knob. For the longest, she couldn't see him when she closed her eyes. Now his legs splay open, like a broken nutcracker won't close. That's the crack, she says, holding him like a sack of flour she may not be able to afford. Later, when they're told to strip, bend over, and cough, the muddy dark will leak back a lost child cry, trapped in the walls like a wounded prayer. A bird roosting in dark rafters between memories of wind and cold cement. But for 1 hour, it all drops away and leaves the touch of all flesh that brings them here, salacious, felonious, holy, holding them together inside a broken shard of time. 1 hour, all the power and glory of earthly touch they can hold. Just going to read about 3 more poems. This one is called Drawing Lesson Negative Space. And when I was teaching at CCWF, I did a lesson on negative space. You know what that is? You know, you see the vase and the space around it, those drawings. And negative space is learning to address the space around objects and the space that makes, and using that as part of the composition. And I had done a class in this, and one of the women there in the class, she was an amazing artist. She used to bring the most incredible drawings to class, and I just was amazed at what she was doing with very little. She would take colored pencils and scratch on pieces of cardboard, and she scratched into them, and she never talked too much. Sometimes they would talk about their lives, and sometimes most of the time they wouldn't. But she didn't say anything about her life, but it was all there in her drawings. All the anger was coming out a lot. I know she'd been abused by the men in her life because it all came out there in her drawings. And this poem is for her. Drawing lesson, negative space. Oh, I should add one thing. She came to class after this. We'd been studying this for about 2 or 3 weeks, this negative space. And she said to me, I see everything differently now. Drawing lesson, negative space for Michelle at CCWF. The yard is down when she scratches by moonlight on tagboard, stolen from commissary trash. Her eyes like the moment between a match's scrape and flare, oblivious to the night sergeant's light, flaring over spikes and razor points. She doesn't see a white bird against the dark, instead, a bird-shaped cutout of sky. And rolls of barbed wire, loopholes for angels to slip into her new second sight, to dance on the cusp of a non-existent moon. Sulfurous light adjusts to her eyes that see Van Gogh in skinny strips of stars that used to be windows. Roomy stealing tampons, third day of lockdown, no matter. Nor the key, as the space she draws around it takes shape. I'm going to switch to this book, which is Altar for Escaped Voices. And in this book, there's several sections. One is some from the prison experiences, and the other is some homeless experiences. I've been working also with the homeless the last about 8 years, or maybe longer than that. And I gave myself the assignment when I was working on these poems to write in other voices, which was a big challenge for me. It's hard to take on some other people's voices, and that's what was my attempt here. This first one is called Altar with Bruised Ankles, Wrists, and Stretch Marks, Delivery Room, Valley State Prison for Women, for Catherine and Irene, 2 friends of mine who have done a lot of advocacy work in the prisons. And this is the voice of the inmate. I pushed hard against gravity, life sucking for and against me, and she pushed back, then crowned, despite chains and cops circling this new, cold, unwelcome place. She didn't cry at first, like a river pouring through me. Alyssa Chantel came gushing out of me, huge, sweet lips fixing to taste the world, to suck up what she needed in big, greedy gulps. They tied strips of cloth around my breasts and gave me a shot to stop the milk, but they never took off the shackles. I fought sleep like crazy to hold her as long as I could, to feast on her little milky fingers and toes for one day. Now my breasts hurt like a motherfucker, but I still smell her in my dreams. And I hope, I've been told that, I know they used to shackle the women when they were giving birth in the prison. And I hope that's changed. I don't know, does anybody know anything about that? That was the last that I heard, that they were doing that. And the last poem I'm going to read, if I can find it. Oh, it's in this poem book. This was at CCWF, and in one of the classes, the art classes, one of the women went in the bathroom. She heard a noise in there, and I went to see what was going on, because she left the door open, and I heard some noise in there. And she had taken a paper cup, and there was a cricket down on the floor, and she reached down and scooped up the cricket and carried it and took it outside and released it. And I was really moved by that action. Cricket at CCWF. Can you hear it? trilling between Kotex boxes and blue toilet water in a cold cement corner. A song dragged up from the bed of a river or a tin cup of rain. Song of old shine, luck and hard time, born of a sweet and dirty friction. Pebbles, grains of salt, ashes, mice droppings, cake, spit, and random dots rubbed between wings of innocence. Bend down now and lift it into a paper cup. A wet song tossed back to the wind, a curse, a prayer, a tiny voice croaking out one last reprieve for us all. Thanks.